Hi, this is PrivateerStation, and today we're bringing you Yulia Latynina as she's discussing the nature of those Iranian drones, Shahed model, with Mark Feygin, Russian opposition politician. It is an interesting deep dive, and she did a lot more research than any of us can do at our spare time. Enjoy. Dear friends, glad to meet you all on FeyginLive. It's Thursday, October 20th, 9 p.m. Kiev time, and we're doing another stream on our channel. We called it Iranian Mopeds of Putin. Of course, mopeds in parentheses. We have Yulia Latynina as a guest today. Glad to see you, Yulia. We have over 10,000 people watching us. 2,000 of you click the like button. Please do not forget to share the link and subscribe. Subscribe to both channels, FeyginLive, Yulia Latynina, and to the PrivateerStation if you are watching that or listening to that in English. So overall, discussing that topic and precursors to it, there are plenty. Every day we have more and more news mentioning that peculiar question of Iranian drones, their supplies, their effectiveness, Moscow and Tehran denials of that exchange existence. So let's start with the following. 8 months of war. Moscow was always talking that Moscow is ready for war. It has all kinds of munitions to fulfill that special operation. It has Air Force, fleet, land, and UAVs were part of troops, part of the inventory being used. Troops were trained to use them. There was a lot of conversations about UAVs, especially since in the Armenian-Azerbaijan conflict, Bayraktars played a big role. So that was not a surprise for Russia, and Russia did have some drones, and Moscow was always saying that, we have drones, that's not an issue. And now apparently they not just have to buy them from Iran, Shahed model, but in essence they actually symbolize a whole new stage of war. Before they appeared, it was one kind of warfare, and ever since they are present on the front, it did change some of the character of this war. So Russia technologically cannot build these drones even on the level of Iran. How can we gauge the technological level of Putin's regime when they have to buy them in Iran in numbers and they cannot make them? Mark, you actually hit the soft spot right here. When we were going to record this interview, we were talking about a whole new strategy of Putin, and Iranian drones are just the beginning of it, apparently. About the second phase of war, where he's not trying to win, where he is basically trying to terrorize the population instead. And after the Second World War, when people were questioned in the cities that were bombed, if bombing had actually affected their willingness to continue fighting. When it came to light that bombing did nothing to prevent people fighting wars, to put down their character and basically scare them out of fighting wars, then carpet bombings were resigned from the collection of different military tactics because they were not reaching the goals designed. Iranian drones, they're very unique UAVs. They don't have much in common with Bayraktars and other normal UAVs, the Raptors and others. So when we dig deeper into the nature of these drones and when we look into why even Russia did not build that kind of crap, we'll see that if we look a little deeper, what is it made of? So, people are saying that boys love guns and weapons. an odd girl. I like guns and ammo and weapons as well. So I like digging into the nature of things, into how they built, what is being used for that. So I've spent several days trying to do the research. I talked to anyone who would speak to me, and I will make references where I can. Some people precluded me from mentioning that they got this information from me. I was even surprised they even talked about that, but I guess they also wanted to vent a little. Online there is a ton of information, not too many people know most details about them, although they were used in Saudi Arabia before. So I will try to share the information that I was told and highlight what is correct, what is not correct. So what is Shahed 136? Again, today we're not discussing their tactical specifications, but like a Sherlock Holmes, I'm putting a little cherry out there. We need to discuss the specifics to understand what the heck is it. So flying ammo, kamikaze drone can carry up to 40 kilos, about 20 pounds, can go to distance about 2,000 kilometers, so about 1.7 thousand miles. It does fly at least 800 kilometers to Kiev from Crimea, and the engine that sounds like a moped, do you know what it is? Tell us please. This is the engine that was in the 30s of the past century, was introduced on Volkswagen Beetlebugs. So that engine was a prototype, a precursor to what's now on the moped. So Limbach, a German company, converted that into an engine for airplanes, light airplanes. Then Chinese got a hold of that engine, and they're selling it now on AliExpress, online, Chinese equivalent of Amazon. That engine indeed consumes very little fuel. It flies really long distance due to that, and it screams like chainsaw. So you can really hear that over ocean, over open air. That's why they were surprised in Odessa, because they traversed the ocean, the sea, in order to get there. So people only heard them on the outskirts of city when they approached. Another feature is when you don't have quality, you can sometimes replace that with quantity. So these ones can be launched at 5 or 10 or 20 at a time. How does that orient itself? It uses cheap civilian GPS system and also basic inertial calculation system for calculating distance to target if GPS is not available. And there are some rumors that it is not accurate because Americans turned the GPS off over Kiev. And I was, that kind of perked my attention. I understand that, as I've talked to a lot of people about the GPS systems before, this would not really affect it too much. So there is a rumor that if an enemy's munition is flying using GPS coordinates system, if you switch GPS off, that munition will not find its target. Now, this is not a possibility because there are a lot more GPS. It's American, it's European Galileo, it's Chinese Baidu, it's Russian GLONASS. That sucker works real well over territory of Ukraine. Don't know about Indonesia region, but over Ukraine it does work. So even the basic EST system on the market is usually using signals from several systems now, and it's at least 4 different constellations of satellites, 3 triangulating satellites at each time available to that, and that was confirmed by a director of one of the companies that specializes in the software for GPS. So Sergey, the owner of the company, told me that, yeah, Americans can turn GPS off, but these horror stories are in the past because there are others. Another way, you can actually use radioelectronic warfare to scramble the signal to that, but it still flies straight. It still calculates the distance. So Sergei Patshevalov, the head of this company, also was looking into these shaheds, and she did a lot of research on the technical side of things. He checked the pictures, the photos of these destroyed shaheds, and he saw, according to him, 5 GPS antennas inside. They're small little squares, 4 whites and 1 black. He says that the white ones are basically altitude determination units, pieces that determine the angular and altitudinal position of the drone, and the black is for indeed coordinate tracking, where it is in space. So he did a lot of research work, even though he's writing commercial software for all these GPS-based Internet of Things. He actually went to Iranian web, found a research at Tehran University by a professor, Ali Rizu Ardalan. Christo Grozov, another investigative journalist, might want to consider looking into that name. It was a good research that was telling a lot about how do you use a commercial $10 piece on Alibaba. Can you build an ADU, altitude determination unit? So he valued that research as a good, solid one. Iranians apparently have a really sucky system politically, but their brain works just fine. They have good sound logic in their research. Why is it not hitting targets well? Because it has very cheap commercial GPS. Because for very precise GPS orientation, like HIMARS, you need military-grade GPS and additional computer on board that he told me about. I won't even bother you with all the details, but you need to consider if the satellite is rising or setting, thickness of atmosphere and that specific spot, because depending upon where it happens, temperature of air, and if you don't calculate all that, that gives you a degree of accuracy plus minus 10 meters. And for example, as we saw in video, it was aiming at the building of Ukraine energy systems, misses it, and hits a residential multi-story building next door. So sorry for long-winded entry into this. I totally enjoy these technical details. So these mopeds, they can fly crazy far. Other UAVs, much cheaper and much closer. Not cheaper, much closer. Other UAVs also seldom ever fly in packs. Other UAVs, like Bayraktars, they hunt alone. These guys, Shaheds, they fly in packs. So they go in general direction and they slam relatively where they were pointed to. Then there is another question. What else can they do? So what? Nothing. That's it. What should it be able to do? It's analog. Well, there are no analogs really to this one, but other UAVs. That miracle from feathers and sticks doesn't really have analogs. Some people are saying it is an analog to others. No, we'll get to that. I can hint you at that. I think at the end of the show, our listeners will formulate it themselves. But, for example, if you take American Switchblade, UAV that is operator-controlled, it flies only 800 kilometers far. It has a heat sensor as Javelin. It hits equipment and armor on the airfield, massively used by Ukrainian forces. Another one that as Israelis Herb also flies 4,000 kilometers, can be operator-controlled, can hit different things from air defense systems to command centers, and it was very successful in destroying transport with soldiers in Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict. So most other kamikaze drones have an operator. Shahed doesn't. Pavel Luzin, another military expert, explained to me that without the presence of satellite communication, any channel for radio control works maybe for 150 kilometers. After that, it becomes deaf. So Shahed is deaf. You cannot manage it. It's also blind. It doesn't have camera. It is a unique case even for a kamikaze drone. So, of course, it doesn't have optical targeting system. And if an optical targeting system is good, drone would have a library of pictures of considered targets, computer processor of high capacity, and is comparing what he sees with the library of pictures. And if it matches, it basically says, oh, that's a good target, let's go destroy it. Shahed doesn't have it. I read online that Shahed may have infrared targeting system. I need to say with full responsibility, and I cannot say the name of the person who confirmed that, but neither in Kiev nor in Odessa saw any infrared head on the destroyed or captured Shaheds. And let's say optical targeting system is one thing, infrared system is different, just to delineate that, yeah, no, we're not mixing together, if somebody will be smart writing in the comments under the video. So infrared is targeting heat. It's basically tracking moving targets because tank is moving and it's warm, right? And the system hits that. Since Shahed is not being used on moving targets, then nobody had seen infrared targeting system on it. Because again, expensive infrared head costs money. Ideally, you need to cool it down with liquid nitrogen. It has a passive radio location targeting system that something that can be used to destroy air defense system. But again, there is a nuance, because in all this time of being used, Shahed has not hit a single air defense system. Well, first of all, because its speed is 185 kilometers. Yeah, it flies low, so air defense systems sometimes cannot see it because they're blind at low levels, but at low altitudes. But at the same time, Brother Wright plane would still be shot by air defense system if they can see it. And here, Shahed is a couple $1,000, missile air defense system is several $100,000 system. So yeah, you can destroy Shahed, but if you used a missile, you just wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that problem indeed exists. That's an interesting one. And what's most interesting, I was trying to dig into some use cases. At first, they were used in Odessa. And they were used, to my sadness, very effectively. There were some warehouses near the ocean and near the sea and port, and Shaheds hit some warehouses pretty well. Some, they just exploded, nothing happened. Others ignited chain explosions, and the warehouses were exploding for quite a while. So some friends were telling me that they were targeting metal roofs on those buildings, and since they're warm, they were attacking them. And then Pavel Luzin told me that everything is not so, not as people are saying. It is very likely that if there is just a targeting assistant walking by the warehouse with an iPhone or any other phone, and he's walking by the warehouse sending GPS coordinates to the operator of Shahed, to the launcher of Shahed. And they're launching Shaheds at these coordinates. That's all they do. And as far as I know, neither in Kiev nor in Odessa, not in single Shahed, and yeah, it is like a Lego tool set. It can be somewhat different, but a standard Shahed, there's not a single targeting system. So it is blind, deaf, mute, cannot be controlled. And then I have a question mark. What is it? So, from the point of view of these technical specifications, what is this oddity? The answer suggests itself that this is a weapon for performing mass terror attacks on the civilian targets. It is a dumb and deaf flying belt of Shahed. It actually sounds close to Shahid's belt, the kamikaze explosive belt. So this mean cannot be used on the front, because on the front, any person with, not even with machine gun, you don't even need high caliber for that. I think you can just shoot it down with the usual rifle or with a shotgun. So if, I don't know, Ukrainian troops were armed with bow and arrows, I suspect you can even shoot it down with an arrow. In a fight between Wilhelm Tell and Shahed 136, I'd bet on Wilhelm. And this thing cannot achieve any result on the front. Its use is about, it can carry about 40 kilos, 20 pounds, similar somewhat to 150 millimeter shell, which daily are being used at a rate of thousands. So even if you have 20 Shaheds and they fly somewhere in the front and destroy something, or land somewhere exploding, that's fraction of a percent from ammo being already used on the front. And 150 shell cannot be shot down. Shahed definitely can. If you're a live human, you can hear it from afar, and it's hard to miss. So then the next question, is it a faulty construct? And no, it isn't. This is a very successful construct in its class, in a class of terrorist weapons. This also answers the question, why did Russia not build their own Shaheds? Because even Putin, before this war, did not, this idea did not come to him to create flying, exploding terrorist weapons to hit on civilians. Because the low IQ among the UAVs, this is not exactly cannon fodder, it is UAV fodder. It is both an advantage and disadvantage. There are many of them. It takes by numbers. If you need to hit a target, well, send 20 of them. 10 will be destroyed, some will miss, but one of them will hit. And you don't even need to hit electric power station with it, because one of its main goals is to make Ukrainian air defense system to waste their missiles that would otherwise shoot down Iskander or Caliber, some more precision and higher explosive munition that next round, will hit the electric station. So I think this is the logic that flows out of all these specifications. This is a tactical weapon of terrorists. You cannot use this idiotic weapon for anything else. Well, we have about 40,000 people watching us live. 10,000 of you click the like button. Thank you for joining. I remind for you to please stay on our channel. After Yulia, we'll have Alexei Arestovich. And if you can, subscribe to Feygin channel and to Yulia Latynina's channel. And if you are listening or watching that in English, subscribe to the PrivateerStation. We are bringing you these things from Europe. All right. So it appears that Moscow consciously decided to use these Shaheds en masse, because different estimates are saying they bought over 2,500 of them. I don't know if they already got them or the contract is for that number. But apparently all these 2,500 drones will be used on the civilian infrastructure. They're calling it critical infrastructure, but essentially it's civilian. It's electric grid transformation systems. Because you can barely use it against anything military. Maybe if you find a warehouse, and then again with that 40-kilo explosive, maybe you can get through the roof and maybe hope to explode more. So am I correct in presuming that this is a weapon targeting, for the most part, civilian targets, right? Yes, absolutely, because every military target will first of all be defended. Every front is well defended, can definitely fend them off. It's a laughable proposition to use shaheds on the front. So they have two ways to be used. Even not so much against civilian infrastructure, because in most cases they'll miss it. But just as a kamikaze with an explosive belt where it can explode, in a bus, in a cafe, in a civilian building, it just would explode anywhere it hits. And this main goal is the main goal of that is to create panic, and of course to make Ukraine spend expensive missiles. Ukraine quickly figured that they should not be wasting expensive missiles on these targets, but they'd rather equip their air defense systems with high-caliber machine guns, and they do the job just fine. Okay, let's talk about this air defense systems. So, Zenith artillery is supposed to be very effective against them, especially with systems of early warning. And even people can use usual rifles to shoot it down. Now, Stoltenberg, the head of NATO, some allies also mentioned that they will aid Ukraine with Zenith artillery. There is also a conversation with Israel. Ukraine turned to Israel. Kuleba, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, has reached out to Israel. Since Israel has a rich experience in fighting similar contraptions, how do you think this will unfold? I understand this is not a technical question. This is more of a political question. This is about the relations, help or not help, how Russia will treat it. And at the same time, these drones are Iranian, and one can understand the attitude to Iran military and Iran weaponry by Israel. So what do you think is the probability? What can Israel do to help? Listen, I need to disappoint you here. This is not just a political question. This is, in case of Israel, a commercial question. Because Israel indeed has a thing that actually is not even being used now. This is the first thing that comes to mind. They have a system that's called Keshet, bow, also a rainbow. Let there be a rainbow in the sky from the Book of Living. This is when the contract is made with Noah after the flood. So that Keshet intercepts all that flying junk, and it's a system of radars that can detect them early and well. It is not being used now by Israel because they have cooler, tougher weapons, but it was protecting borders of Israel for a while. And, as people know, Israel is a big country, and we're not sure if it'll be enough to protect Ukraine borders with this weapon. I'm not sure. But the question that is posed, who will be paying for that system? Is it an expensive one? Well, it is built by private companies. A lot of their hardware is built by private companies, Rafale, etc. When Americans supply weapons to Ukraine, this is paid by American government, Lend-Lease program, etc. Israel is currently at war. It has several hot areas where they use their weapons, and they would not be keen on paying for Ukrainian armaments from their pocket and subsidizing their help to Ukraine. Because, by the way, Ukraine, of course, Iran, and yeah, this is a factor. At the same time, Ukraine in United Nations very often sided with Palestine votes. Didn't really support Israel internationally before. Well, yeah, there is a thing. Without government of Israel confirming things, they will not be able to sell anything, right? Yeah, I basically have my concerns about that factor because soon they're going to have elections in Israel. There are chances that Bibi Netanyahu will win, and he is a well-known man who can walk between the raindrops, and he thinks that since Russian air defense systems that were planted in Syria, they never shot at Israeli military who were bombing and attacking Iranian presence at the Syrian front. So I think chances are pretty low that Israel will support Ukraine. We kind of deviated from technical into political fields here, but you know what it reminds me of? When I was researching radio electronic systems, the systems for jamming drones and UAVs, I figured that the most successful drones that Ukrainians were using at the time were not some advanced multi-million devices, but the basic junk, well, not exactly junk, but commercial version of drones, civilian drones bought on AliExpress, not because they're not falling from radio electronic defense systems. They fall in masses if you turn on such a system. But they're cheap, and radio electronic systems are expensive, and there are very few of them on the front. But since there are plenty of them, in their numbers, they can overwhelm and overcome any other more advanced technology. So Iran basically figured a way how to build fleas. This is and lice. Arestovich came with a good idea. It's like a drone spam. So Iran is sending drone UAVs, UAV spam around, and they overcome a lot of defenses just by numbers. And I understand how it can be overcome, but I think those people whom I talk to would not be happy if I go into details of into these aspects of use of these drones, and yeah, let's not go there. Okay, so if Ukraine figures out any system how to fight these drones, Zenith complexes or something else. Mark, remember my words. Whenever Ukraine figures out how to shoot them down, they'll be using some very basic system, because you hit the like with the like. So then the meaningfulness of this type of munition will lose its effectiveness, will lose its value for Moscow if territory of Ukraine will be well defended. Not entirely, because Ukraine is big versus Israel, for example, and you cannot protect yourself from a kamikaze, from somebody who decided to blow himself up. It's difficult to calculate where he will come with that explosive belt. So it would be difficult to find, to block all access pathways for these machines. So what's the strategy of Putin right now? He continues to try looking for some miracle weapon. You know, he's got like a usual mythological gangster line of thought. He'll either freeze everybody or flood Europe with refugees, or his last idea, Arestovich is right there. Hey, flood everybody with refugees because it's cold, it's hungry, and there is no electricity. Then you use also drones to oversaturate air defense systems, and then serious missiles like calibers fly in and destroy Ukrainian infrastructure. And I think he was also thinking about saturating. What's the good way to post it? I remember what Annalena Baerbock said when Ukrainian energy infrastructure was started to be targeted. She said that the main thing to support Ukraine is not to support it with tanks at the moment, but with air defense systems. So Germany can wiggle their way out of supporting tanks, right? But it's much easier to supply air defense systems. Even the countries that are shy about sending full armor that can be used for offensive purposes, they're okay with sending defense systems. So that blew back onto Putin's intentions, because he did want to take Ukraine easy. As an idea, this is not entirely stupid. This is a strategy of asymmetrical warfare, same as Iran. He figured that on the front he will not succeed. Let me fight with those who did not expect. I will not hit you where you're strong, I will hit you where you're weak. That is called terrorism, but in this case it's not a label, it's a description of tactics. But that's just theory for now. Remember that anecdote? Theoretically, we're millionaires. Is it okay to tell to our listeners? Okay, please, go ahead. So, a random family, son asks his father what's the difference between theoretical and practical. His dad turns to their mother and daughter, asking, hey, it's an adult family, they're not kids. Would you sleep with another guy for $1 million? And they both nod and say, yeah, sure. And he turns to his son and says, well, that's the difference. Theoretically, we're millionaires. Practically, we have two whores. Prostitutes, right, okay. I'll use the more politically correct word. This is an anecdote, right? But yeah, this is theoretically, Putin thought it real well. Practically, with the amount of missiles that Russia has left, and also considering that small fact that Ukrainian infrastructure, back in the time when it was built, was being built to withstand a nuclear war with NATO and the United States, back when it was part of USSR, because all their systems are doubled or tripled in their connectivity and capacity, and it's also pretty well protected. So the feeling I got from the conversations I had with Pavel Luzin, with Roman Svitan, with others, they said it will not quite work. So, in this case, Iranian missiles that Putin wants also to buy from Iran could be a game changer, and the Mopeds could also be a game changer if they hit the targets more accurately, or if Ukrainians just wasted their expensive missiles on these systems, on Shaheds. But Ukrainians are smart too. They can still, though, cause a lot of harm. And I was actually recording an interview just a couple hours ago with somebody in Ukraine where they showed us candles and saying, hey, you know, we have some interruptions and we use these. Whole technology still works. So I would recommend those who live in Ukraine to make sure you have backup generators, you have, wood stoves and candles just in case. But this weapon is not capable of changing the situation on the front, like not even a single bit. Also, a lot of warehouses Ukraine is using are on the territory of Poland, so that's also off limits. And Luzin also reminded me that they indeed did question citizens of cities that were carpet-bombed during the Second World War. Not just electricity was turned off, but like most of the city was destroyed. And the question was, did it affect your fighting spirit in any capacity? And it turned out that it didn't. All right, that is an interesting one. We have almost 49,000 people watching us live. I usually remind you to do certain things, you know what you need to do. Let's also try to summarize that and try to look at it globally. Moscow, from the beginning of their campaign on the 24th of February, they involved Belarus rather closely to their union. They used Belarus to invade Ukraine from the north. Now there is a risk that there'll be a sequel of that miniseries or whatever movie, and they'll try it again. And we understand that Belarus is basically an annexed territory by Moscow, so what else would you expect from it? And then there is a new situation with Iran, because Iran is a country sponsor of terrorism that this is how it's listed in the most international lists. And there's a bunch of sanctions against Iran, yet they are so vehemently denying the fact that they are supplying Putin with surface-to-surface missiles or drones. Today, Speaker of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Zakharova, was blabbering online, saying that no, we do not get anything from Iran. So I have a feeling that there is some concern in the capitals of the world what Moscow is giving in exchange for these weapons. There are rumors that Moscow might give Su jets to Iran, but frankly, Moscow needs them themselves. I don't know, maybe a long-term contract. Perhaps there is a different exchange going on. You mean nuclear? Right. Do not have to be enriched uranium, but could be some labs, could be some technical things, technical capacities. Because, Russia did involve itself with Iran. That station in Bushehr that Germans started building back in the day, then Russia was involved in some capacity around it. So, different countries like Israel should not be treating that cooperation between Moscow and Tehran lightly, because Moscow is in a difficult position and they likely could be more forthcoming with providing different kinds of help to Iran, unlike in some days before this war. Now we're at a situation when Moscow already mentions some nuclear weapons, so do you think we can consider that Moscow can supply Iran with something bigger than money or military equipment that it's missing? Do you think it could be something technology related, nuclear program related? You shamed me with this question. I don't know much about it. I need to start asking my contacts with the same level of effort as I spent on these mopeds. I just want to quote a couple things here. First of all, some of the Americans I think I've seen it from one of the American crazy leftists posts that United States are fighting Iran until the last Russian soldier. So frankly, it is an interesting position for Iran, because they always considered both Ayatollah Khamenei. He called both America and Russia a big devil and a small devil. He's probably enjoying it when these two devils fight. Right. He not quite sure who should be paying for all that stuff, because I totally suspect Iran enjoys that fight. Also, back in the 20s, there was an epidemic of explosions in Iran, mostly related with nuclear research facilities. Of course, we knew whom they pointed their fingers at. But in one of my shows, I was actually comparing the destruction of Crimean bridge with those Iranian explosions. Because if that was not FSB internal quarrels, that was a brilliant operation done by Ukraine, but in the same style like those explosions in Iran. If you also notice that Putin started that missile terrorism after the Crimean bridge, probably pissed off after this birthday present. And he also might be realizing that Kherson front is withering away, it's dying. It's very difficult to supply that because Crimean bridge has a very specific meaning. It is a military supply route. So one can say that, Ukrainians can say they were not involved, but it is a little too much, I think, to consider that Putin has shot off his own balls by destroying this bridge or damaging it. So I think Ukrainian military intel is about on the same level as Israeli Mossad. If they cannot pretend maybe on the first gold medal in this competition, if there ever is, they definitely can take a silver. So one thing, it's really bad, has a bad reflection on supplies of Kherson front. So now they're preparing General Surovikin and even make him talk. He barely can, but they make him pronounce words with his mouth. He can't talk, right? They gave him a teleprompter and he barely could read it. We didn't know who was in charge of operation before then. Nobody was front and center on the cameras, so now they're showing us General Surovikin because, they will pin it on him. This is the guy who gave up Kherson. Putin almost won the war. Surovikin lost it. So besides all these tactical things that Putin needs to distract people's attention, especially of his crazy Z supporters, and transfer their attention to the Ukrainian population that is hungry and cold this winter. There is an interesting detail about this bridge, about this Crimean bridge. Medvedev and Russia were posing and saying many times that if anyone tries to destroy the bridge or attack the bridge, we will create an Armageddon to the attacking side. So, with all the shitty things they do now, that's a shitty Armageddon. That's a subpar Armageddon. Yeah, basically transmitting it to Americans and everybody else that, nothing happens if you hit the territory that Russian territory is being attacked, or at least the territory that Russia considers to be its own. So that explosion of the Crimean bridge was an indicator that, look, we are not afraid of that Judgment Day Russia was threatening us with. And please give us ATACMS, the 300-mile weapons. And also all that Iranian mopeds and civilian terror that we've seen in the last couple of weeks. I hope they will affect the way people see that warfare, if it's possible to affect it further. We've seen a lot of civilian dead bodies. This is definitely not a strategic victory that Russia can claim a strategic victory. This is not a holy grail that Putin is trying to win somehow and to win this war. This is not what it is. No, he's kind of putting him in a worse position. Alright, at the very end of the stream, we've been live for about 50 minutes. We'll have maybe 5 minutes left. Yeah, it's time to close shop. I have a last question. It's a rhetorical question. What next? Okay, so Russia will likely leave Kherson. I understand we're walking a bit further from Iranian drones. since they don't have a useful tool to terrorize Ukrainian population into forcing their president to sit down at negotiation table. This is not happening and likely won't. I don't think he is idiotic to the degree that he thinks he still can push them somehow to do that. No surface-to-surface missiles or drones can do that. What next? What else does he have before trying to use a tactical nuke? Does he have anything? I don't know. Belarusian army? Attack on the north? I don't know. Bringing maybe Iran troops to the front? What else he has? Mobilization we're seeing. In general, we understand. The results may take some time to manifest, but we can understand where it'll go. Quantity, quality-wise. What else? A very short answer. He has one thing that he is using every time when he is put in a corner, and he has unlimited supply of that. Lies. He can come out and say, I saved Belgorod. We defended our territory in Belgorod from Ukraine's invasion. Do you think it'll be sold successfully to Russian public? I have a feeling that those people who are Z supporters, they can be sold anything. Putin's elites, of course, will not buy that. And I think in this capacity, Putin's days, actually probably months, speaking realistically, they're counted. Of course, yeah, there is a significant part of his of people close to him. They don't want to move to barracks. They don't want to live in sanctions with the closed doors in the barracks and martial law, and they enjoy the quality of life. They cannot live in Scissorin instead of Italy or France. They understand that Lavrentiy Beria, who will suffocate his boss with a pillow, he will be stricken out of all the sanctions list, and he'll get the full release of all his sins. And those who may not do that, they may still be left in those sanctions list for a while and not get any absolution. That's an interesting angle on that. We've been for almost an hour. Over 50,000 people of you watched us live, and many clicked the like button. Please do not forget to subscribe to Yulia's channel, to Mark's Feygin, and to the Mark's channel, and to the PrivateerStation if you are listening or watching that in English. Yulia, thank you. Thank you very much. I hope we'll see you more and talk more about it. Mark, thank you. And we'll go listen to Alexei now, right?